What's up, everybody? Joe White here, and I wanted to comment on something that I literally just watched. Apparently, Tony Schiavone can't do a podcast now without guests because him and Conrad apparently ran out of shit to talk about. Um, Apparently, Tony Schiavone sitting there for an hour and a half, and Conrad asking him, "What about this? And what about that? And what happened when this happened?" And Tony Schiavone sitting there looking at him, going, "I don't know, or I don't remember, or that's the way that Bischoff wanted it." Um, A, shows you how little influence Tony Schiavone really had back in the day. And B, it just goes to show you that Tony Schiavone was just there to collect a paycheck towards, the middle of, WCW and the end of WCW. The same way that he's there just to collect a paycheck now. Um, he he doesn't care. He just knows that he doesn't have to work at Starbucks anymore. And he knows that he doesn't have to call Gwinnett Braves baseball anymore. Um, which he was a damn fine ball commentator. He actually did good calling those Braves games. Maybe he should go back to that. But it just shows you that he's like, I'm older. I need to make a living. I really don't give a crap. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And it doesn't matter if I like it or not. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, there was an episode of his podcast I just saw a clip from. I don't know exactly when it aired, but I know the clip was posted like a day ago as of this recording, where Shivani and and Conrad the Neckbeard Thompson and Excalibur, who is wearing the mask in this clip, as you'll see, old sock face as Jim Cornette calls him. They're watching old PWG shit, like stuff when Adam Cole used to wrestle and Generico and Steen used to wrestle out there. Really, really old stuff. And I want to play this clip for you, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. But pay attention to kind of what's happening in the ring while this is going on, while they're commentating on this, and we'll come back and discuss it.
A telecast for many reasons, or a broadcast for many reasons, and one of the things is just the spectacular things that we're seeing right now.
It's unbelievable.
It is. It really is absolutely unbelievable. You know, if it wasn't for you telling me that was Adam Cole, I would have never recognized it. It's just when there's a kid who's gone through his share of injuries. Look at the fans, man, on just a standing up, just on a submission hold here.
Excalibur, we know that this style that they're working here is really going to evolve into what we see in AEW every week on TV now. You've probably studied this more than anybody on the planet. How would you describe this style of wrestling? Because it was very influential. I mean, there's so many wrestlers who are, cutting their teeth and getting their first big break now. They grew up on this, and this is sort of the new way. But is there a term to describe this fast-paced style that Pro Wrestling Guerrilla became known for?
If there is a term, I don't know it. I mean, the what I would say is that it's the North American indie style, but even that's kind of unfair because it takes influences from so many places. I mean, It was from Japan, from Mexico, and from a lot of what people were doing in ECW, but it was really, I think, a reaction, kind of the antithesis of the slower, more plotting style, that you would see on. I don't know, plotting maybe is the wrong word, because you would see these matches that they were 2.5 minutes long on Raw or on Nitro, and it was just like, I mean, that's sure you got to see a lot of matches, but did you get to see any good matches that night? And
right.
And I guess that's a relative term. It's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but for the people that were in this building and people that were buying those DVDs around the world, the matches were longer and had more storytelling and more athleticism and more drama than what you could get on a any given Monday night or on a Thursday night. And so it was Maybe the super indie style. I don't know, but it was, a style that, in 1999 when I started, this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to wrestle every night like it was the main event of Budokan Hall, in the hottest era of All Japan, or the main event of the Tokyo Dome. Like every night we wanted to be. That's how intense we wanted the matches to be. And the thing we didn't realize is that if you're wrestling in front of 25 people in a swap meet, maybe you don't need to beat the shit out of each other.
So here's my problem with PWG and that quote unquote style of wrestling. First off, that's not American indie style. American indies really don't have a style, because American indies are really, it's still a regional thing. What you get out there in front of a bunch of neckbeards in Reseda is not what you're going to get when you wrestled back when CWF Mid-Atlantic was in business. And it's still not what you get on many of the indies here in the Southeast. You get a more methodical style out here. You get a more style that makes sense. I can tell you right now, it used to piss me off when I would watch Trevor Lee come to CWF Mid-Atlantic, do a storyline with Nick Richards where Trevor Lee was the heel during that. And then he would, do stuff in CWF Mid-Atlantic that made sense. And he would cut promos, and he would do storylines and do vignettes and have really good matches with really good storytelling in front of about what half the people were in that building in Reseda at times, because CWF didn't draw, if you go back and watch their programming, they didn't pack that building every week. That building maybe held about 200 to 300 people, if that. I'll say 150. And that was when they did shit like, like the year-end shows and the Rumble and stuff like that. Sorry, my GPS is freaking out in the background. But it used to tick me off when he would come here and do that. And then the very next weekend, when they had an off date, or even a day later, like if he did this on a Saturday, he would hop a flight out to California, and then Sunday night do the PWG crap, which no storytelling, no promo, no vignette. It's just move, bing, 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 with no logic whatsoever. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And I always thought it devalued Trevor Lee so much, because the national audience who went on to watch him as Cameron Grimes, they were like, the majority of the people who went on to see him as Cameron Grimes were PWG watchers. And they were like, oh, he could do so much more in the ring. He could do all these cool moves. He could do this. And I'm sitting here as a fan going, here's a guy who can cut promos. When he was doing the whole to the moon stuff, I was kind of actually happy for him, because it's like, okay, you're coming out of your shell. You're showing that you can cut a promo. But then the matches would last maybe 3 minutes, as Excalibur was saying there. I do agree with Excalibur on that. It wasn't just during the late 90s. It was, it was pretty much right up until Vince McMahon left. That's why, during the latter part of his run in WWE, Trevor would show up on SmackDown with the Good Brothers and everything. I'm like, all right, maybe they're finally going to do something with him, and then he gets released, And I said from the beginning, he's not a good fit for that system, because they don't know what to do with him. They don't see his potential. They see a skinny, short guy with long hair, with a Southern accent, and that just wasn't going to get over with them. I don't even think it got over with Triple H. I said they're going to ruin him. His best, bet would have been to go to somewhere like a TNA. But then again, TNA wasn't what it is today. I mean, the Indies, he should have just stayed on the Indies, but you got bills to pay and you want to achieve your dreams. But it makes me mad when people say that AEW or PWG was the American indie style, that was the definition of what indie style in America was, when there was so much better product out there, like a CWF Mid-Atlantic, like a AML in Carolina, PWX back when it was in business. It really pigeonholes the industry. People always are going, oh man, the Indies died out. The Indies died out. WWE took over. WWE got hot, killed the Indies. They killed the Indies in the UK. Good. I'm glad, because the UK was nothing but that flippity flappity floppity nonsensical flu bullshit that made no sense, where they cut no promos. They did nothing logically. And to me, that's not storytelling. That's not what I, grew up on. Whether it be WWE, whatever you want to call it, WCW. I've been going back and watching the WWE Vault channel has put out the history of the NWO, or the story of the NWO. They just released part 2 today. And I spent the majority of my 8-hour drive time today listening to that rolling down the road. And I'm sitting there going, they royally screwed it up by adding more and more and more members, but the core storyline of the Giant, the self-destruction of the NWO, combine that with the Sting scenario and Lex Luger winning, and stuff, and then later on you had Goldberg coming in. Say what you want about the night that the finger poke of doom happened, but at least there was some story there. At least, yes, I'm not saying it was a good story, but the Goldberg getting arrested over the Liz stuff, and the finger poke happening, and the NWO Wolfpack joining back up with Hogan. It, they were trying. At least they tried to do something. It wasn't just moves for the sake of moves. You got that at the beginning of the show when the cruiserweights were happening. And even then, the cruiserweights would have some bit of story. Everything tried to make a little bit of sense. It wasn't just bing, bang, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to stare at you while I'm going to suplex a guy while I stare right in your face and wait for you, and hold him up in the air while I wait for you to super kick me, like what was in that clip. Or we're going to stand outside the ring and look directly up at you while you jump off the turnbuckle and we attempt to catch you, and the crowd, the neckbeards, oh! No. That's not the way it's supposed to be. If somebody's going to do a dive on you from the top rope, you want to stand there and you want to sell it. You want to kind of be groggy, or you want to, the camera should shoot it in a way where you don't see the guy coming, where you don't see the people staring up into space going, all right, we're ready. We're going to catch you. Action. That's what it looks like. It looks like phony, hokey, folky. Yeah, phony and hokey. We're inventing words here on the channel. Folky bullshit. That's what that is. Dive. Remember that old Facebook post or Twitter post? Ring around the rosy. We all fall down again. I still remember that post to this day, and it still reigns true. So for Excalibur to sit there and pigeonhole all of the indies in America, that's the American indie style? No, it's not. It's not my style. It's not the style I want to watch. I don't want to watch moves just for the sake of moves. I don't want to watch a gymnastics expedition, I just don't want to watch it. Exhibition, I meant to say. Golly, can't talk today. If I want to go watch gymnastics, I'll go turn on gymnastics. And I know the three-ring circus analogy, there's always got to be something for everybody, but at least, the guy getting shot out of the cannon makes sense. The clowns make sense. The lion tamer makes sense. The whole thing about the lion tamer is this motherfucker might get his head bitten off tonight. It's not the lion tamer, it's the lion. You're sitting there praying, please don't let the lion bite this dude's head off. The clowns, the pie in the face gag has some, makes sense. What they did in NXT with oh yeah, she's going to pop out of the cake and pie the guys and all this. But it makes sense. It's not 50 fucking super kicks and fake grenade spots. And just for the sake of it, we're going to pop the boys. We know the neckbeards are going to laugh. We know the neckbeards are going to pop because they don't know any better. And again, I blame the fans just as much as I do the wrestlers for cheering for this shit. If you go to a movie and the movie's bad, what happens? You walk out. I've only walked out of one movie in my life. Almost two. But if the movie's real bad, you walk out. If the wrestling don't make sense, we just accept it. And we cheer for it anyway. Jim Cornette is 100% right when these stupid just shit for the sake of bullshit needs to stop. But to sit there and, again, pigeonhole that's American indie style. No, you're wrong, dude. You're wrong. Go away. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. We'll see you down the road.